This is the Todd Shapiro Show on Canada Talks, SiriusXM 167.
All right. One of my favorite guys, big brain. Don't understand him half the time, not just because of his accent, because of his big words and his sort of computer knowledge on the blockchain and everything crypto and also mining. Welcome to the program in studio, Frank Dumas and also Jean-Philippe Beaudet. How you doing, gentlemen?
There's also the reason that most of the time when you call me, I'm having lunch. So doing pretty good.
You love avoiding me. You love avoiding me. I know. You're like my wife. You know, you just love avoiding me. Good to hear. And how you doing, Jean-Philippe?
Very good. Happy to be with you guys.
Pleasure. So lots going on between St. George's Eco Mining and the Zeu Crypto Networks. I know there's shareholders within the Zeu side of things wanting some updates, interested in updates, and I believe you have a bit of an update here that you'd like to share with us today.
We had a small news today, so I think it was a significant news. We'll see how people understand it. We'll spend some time over the next few weeks to explain what it means, but I think that I would say the crypto industry or the blockchain industry will most probably explain it also to other people. So it's pretty significant. It will fix a lot of issue that the industry as a whole had. We probably gonna have some fun with this.
So why don't if you don't mind, Frank or Jean-Philippe, tell us sort of exactly what that news was.
Okay, and so we just announced today that we have filed a provisional patent into what we would call the cross-chain atomic swap engine, which doesn't mean much for most of the people, but it will say that from any blockchain to any blockchain, which means any cryptocurrency to any cryptocurrency, can be swapped. And furthermore, the big innovation into it can be swapped between multiple participants. So more than that, essentially our system being a messaging system, a secure messaging system, it can create exchange of data. So any protocol can communicate with any protocol, kind of circumventing the need for distributed code block like smart contracts.
So you want me to simplify this?
I think you're going to have to do your best, and then I'm going to have to dumb it down after that even.
It's going to be big. Now, pretty much right now, developers, when they develop application for blockchain, they get married pretty quickly to one protocol. And with our approach, they'll be protocol agnostic. So they'll be able to develop and exchange, get fed data and send back data to multiple blockchain. Actually, to every blockchain that exists right now, every type of protocol that exists that are real blockchain, and any real blockchain in the future will be compatible with what we've put together. And we actually pushed that for our Moola Mail application for our end-to-end encrypted email. That's also a data marketplace. You know that the structure of that email, we talked about it a little bit before, is based on the fact that every email address is an actual digital wallet, but now it's getting augmented even more. It becomes its own distributed exchange. So you'll be able to just type in your email or in your in the UI or the user interface of the application that you want to send, that you want to sell Bitcoin, for example, to oversimplify it, because obviously there's a lot more application a lot more that the atomic swap will do in the background if you want to get different database or different data providers or data dissemination machine, I would say, to communicate with each other between different blockchain. But if you want to very simplify it, bring it down to the killer app of the different blockchain, you have, let's say, 10 Bitcoins, you want to get some Ethereum, and instead of going through an exchange, then you can do it live on your application without a third party coming in and charging you fees or putting conditions or putting delay. So it will be instant at the atomic level, and the interesting part is that we were able to do it with an unlimited amount of user. So as much as we can distribute that email, the more user we have, the better price people will get, the better liquidity they'll get to exchange these crypto assets or digital assets. At the same
So how,
time,
Frank, I was just going to ask Frank Dumas, if you don't mind, just because I want to try and make sure we do keep this something our listeners can definitely follow and understand. No, because it's still like, a very confusing industry. And I always speak to anyone within the blockchain community and within sort of cryptocurrencies and stuff to really try. I think part of and I really believe this, part of its lack of growth is to the fact that, a lot of people just simply don't understand it. And when people get frightened by things they don't understand, so they avoid them. And that happens a lot. But what is it like that right now isn't, what would be the biggest competitor to this patent? Is there anything like it? How does it work differently than exchanges, for example?
Well, we're not really competing with the exchange. We're just making things a lot more simpler for people.
Fluid.
So yeah, it's making things more fluid, which doesn't translate in English. But he's making face also. You don't have him in camera here, but I think if you look at the developing or the developers in general, at the ecosystem of blockchain in general right now, there may be 10 other, maybe 20 other potential competitors. They're low profile, they're flying under the radar. We'll eventually hear about them. But this is not, we're not stopping with this. This is just a component for us, but that has a disruptive effect to the, within the industry. You look at the one thing we believe, and we've said that before, is when we start to rebuild Zeu back in September, October last year. Oliver and I had a good discussion. We said, look, we're going to look for things we can monetize. We're going to look for things that people can use very quickly, that can have adoption and distribution. And the one thing I believe, and I think that's the mantra of the whole team, is the one thing that we believe is that the best technology is the one you use without knowing that you're using it. And I think that's how we're approaching it right now. You eventually going to start to do transaction with token without figuring out that it's token. Like Karen on Facebook will be able to send some Libra to your wife, and she won't even know. She won't need to know what's powering, what's behind the technology. She's just going to use it.
Good to know. And by the way, I've just realized I was saying Jean-Philippe Beaudet, but that's just, it's Beaudet. You don't have your full name in there. I was reading the Instagram name. I'm sorry for mispronouncing your name, sir.
No worries. I'm used to it.
Okay. No, I do apologize. The CTO of the Zeu Crypto Networks and obviously a serial entrepreneur. Go and follow him at Jean-Philippe BEA, and then Frank Dumas is at Makin5, MAIKAN 5. So what's the status then, gentlemen, for the Zeu Crypto Networks potentially going public?
We're actually waiting for the exchange to come back to us. Most of the very difficult questions, or let's say the largest amount of questions in commentary and request have been answered. And there's probably just a few questions left on their side. We're waiting for a decision anytime now. And we'll see from there. I think we have a pretty good offer. Obviously, there's a dynamic that goes back to last year. The plan of arrangement is already 1 year old. Actually, even more than that, the plan of arrangement is a year and a month old. But the ex-dividend date was a year ago. And that raised some questions because the company we have now is totally different from the company that we had last year. We barely, I would say, maybe we have 5% of what we had in terms of IP that was worked on last year. That has grown, that become a lot bigger. We have a lot more things done, and that's what they've been reviewing right now, saying, okay, so you start this process with a snapshot or a Polaroid of the company that dates already a year ago, and that drastically changed when the transaction with the other company collapsed. Now you've built something, you've built assets inside of the company. How do we manage this? How do we make sure that it's equitable for the people that are coming in now into the parent company, into the market, and versus the people that were there last year? But for what I know from my position right now, nothing has changed. Like, we expect to go public anytime now on the CSE. They're revising the file. It took forever, to be honest, to get the audited financials because of the recent the recent aspect of the digital assets of blockchain technology and of the cryptocurrency. It was very difficult to get things audited with our CPAs and with their own regulators. And we've been able to do that after almost 9 months of working with them, late in April, early May. I look at other company right now in the same field, even just investment company or crypto holdings, and they're going through the same process. Like, they're having a lot of problems. So,
well, I was going to ask you about that, Frank. Is for the entrepreneur, for someone who doesn't know much about the public markets, or for maybe even someone who does know a lot about the public markets, explain to the listener what that's like for companies across the board in terms of compliance and regulation, as opposed to going, my goodness, snap our fingers, things get done. That's not the case.
Well, there's things you can do, or at least there's things that will be tolerated. Maybe you cannot do it, but they will be tolerated if you're a private company. You can give some forward-looking statements. You can say, we'd like to be at this place and get this much revenue in 1 year from now. You get that a lot from shareholders. Is what do you think? Where do you think you're going to be in 6 months, in 1 year, in 2 years? And there's a lot of limitation of what we can do the minute we become public, because everything has to be based in fact, and everything has to be reviewed by third party and audited by third party. By the time that you get everything reviewed, you're either there or not, so you get a press release and so, the things that we were trying to tell you 3 months ago, well, finally we did it, and here it is. And it's a bit the same thing for anything we do, any development. I'm a bit jealous of what other people can do in the blockchain right now, and they did an ICO a few years ago offshore, and they're not public, they're a private company, they have no oversight, they're limited oversight, I would say. But they don't have to put financials every 3 months. They don't have to explain their strategy to any regulators, because that's another thing. It's difficult to explain the dynamic of how you move into a new culture, a new industry that does things a lot differently than anything else, to a regulators who could be extremely competent at what they do, but they're a little bit behind when it gets to this up and coming business, or this up and coming business culture. So there's a lot. You have to constantly make sure that everything is documented, everything is backed. There's a level of documentation that needs to be done in the background for every transaction we do. That is very impressive. Like, we have people. If you look at since the last year, I would say we have about 3, maybe 4 lawyers that are full-time working for us. Independent from the company, they don't work in-house. We work with Macmillan out in Montreal, Toronto, and Vancouver. But not to plug them, but they're pretty good. And they, like the IP lawyers, the people that are helping us with the patent, the people that are helping us on the security sides of things, we're very busy. And it's all time sensitive. So often we're trying to juggle doing the development, making the marketing for that development, because we still need to attract either collaborators, other developers, maybe third party that has, that see an interest in working with us and co-marketing with us. And at the same time, we need to stay, on the side of the fence where we don't put the company in trouble and where it would affect the shareholders. So it's a balancing act at the beginning. I think looking back, if going public with a blockchain company early on like that, we didn't make life easy for ourselves.
Well, it's interesting to hear the developments of the Zeu Crypto Networks, and it's so wonderful talking with both Frank Dumas and Jean-Philippe Beaudet. I'm saying that right now, right?
Yes, you do.
And real quick, just in a few minutes that we have here, how is beyond your business and your entities and stuff, how is the sort of the perception of blockchain, of crypto, right now with the general public? Is there more favorable views based on now regulations and crackdowns and things? Are we seeing kind of like maybe an important step to taking it a little bit more legitimately and it actually growing over time?
The perception I have is that we're dancing a crypto tango, right? So we're doing, a one step forward, two step backwards with regulators. There's some jurisdictions that are going very fast and are structuring things in a way that is makes sense a lot and that will generate a lot of business. Malta is one of them. There's a few other countries, and then you get the leader of the free world that comes out with absolutely moronic and ignorant comments, but that at the same time protect his own personal interest and the interest of his cronies of our legacy banking industry. So that, I know I'm not going to make friends saying that, but there's always this tension that we have no choice. If we're successful, somebody else will have to die, and or some other technology will just be phased out. And if these technology are making a lot of money, being in between, being the force third party or middleman in the transaction you do, they're not easy to move.
Well, it's interesting following the entire process of it all, and here in Canada, I think people are still adapting and learning. Other countries, though, Frank, are a little bit more accepting, aren't they, of everything going on, like in Asia and stuff? Aren't we seeing sort of a little bit more of an advancement when it comes to the blockchain?
I would say what you're seeing right now is pretty much what you saw with wireless mobile phone. For the longest time in the 90s, we thought it would take a few more decades to maybe 20, 30 years to get Africa, for example, wire with a phone and with the internet. And then the wireless technology came out, and the microwave and satellite, and became a lot cheaper. And suddenly Africa didn't have to deal with legacy local exchange. They didn't have to deal with the legacy Bell and or South Bell in the US, stuff like that were kind of in the way of progress. They skipped that step because it made sense for them. And right now, crypto is the same thing. Because if you go to Africa or you go to Southeast Asia, we call them unbankable. They don't have bank accounts. They often don't have a lot in terms of personal data or control over personal data. And then suddenly blockchain shows up where they can do micropayment between themselves. One of the biggest issue right now was to do transaction between, wallets that don't trust each other for products that can come from a third party. And somehow I think that we can definitely contribute with this technology that we just announced today to that type of business. So obviously, the main market is not Africa, but I guess that they will definitely jump on it. And you see the government in these countries understanding that this is a way for them to leverage themselves out of misery.
Well, exciting to hear the updates, man. Like I always tell people, when Frank comes on the program, between the accent and his brain, you're going, my goodness, I can't pick up ladies like he can with that accent, and I also can't get him with my knowledge of everything going on in the world. So always envious.
You have a radio show, so you're good.
Yeah, no, I'm good in the long locks. You know what I mean? But hey, man, always appreciate you coming on, and while I make light of a situation, it's nice to know there's progress going on with the Zeu Crypto Networks. Good announcement. I'm sure that people who are involved with St. George's Eco Mining and early investors in Zeu are excited about the news, and nice to get a catch up just on the blockchain in general. And thank you to also to Jean-Philippe Beaudet. We do appreciate your time as well, my man, and continued success as you continue to grow as the CTO of Zeu Crypto Networks as well. Gentlemen, have a great day, and please get back in studio in the coming weeks whenever you have announcements to make. I always like learning about the space as we continue to evolve with it, and you two are sort of part of the pioneers that teach the regular public of exactly what it is. Cheers to you both.
We'll be back for sure. Thanks.
Can't wait to have you.
This is the Todd Shapiro Show on Canada Talks, SiriusXM 167.